Welcome back to the OHIO Podcast, everybody. I am your co-host or host tonight, joined by my co-host here shortly, Buckeye Boyz, a.k.a. the Podfather. Do us all a big favor this evening and smash that like button. Share the show wherever you're at this evening. Let's get a big old crowd joining us live tonight as we have some great topics that we need to discuss. Joining me this evening, below me is my co-host JR in the know, silky smooth JR, and to the left of me, well, she don't need much of an introduction from all of you. From the Buckeye Boyz, TG, welcome to the OHIO Podcast tonight. TG, tell everybody who you are, what you do, where are you, a little bit about yourself.
All right, what up, everybody? My name is TG. Well, I prefer to be called that, to be honest. And I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I am a total sports nerd. Have always been. The thing I like to do is study sports, study pretty much all the analytics, like to dig in, watch film, and even study players more than anything else. And on top of that, I even enjoy having my own little hobbies. Like I played sports, enjoyed it a lot. Have my part of my own sports teams. When I have the chance, I also like to work on little projects. I do some volunteer work every now and again. And I even worked for a daycare to help out with children, because why not? I actually enjoyed, I was there. Also, I'm good with technology, because the biggest thing I was always doing was fixing whatever technology was broken there. Anything they needed, I was always there. It's pretty much, I'm just a hard worker all the time. Right now, I'm kind of like taking some college classes just to kind of maneuver around with the computer field more, to do more with the with media as well. So
Excellent. JR, he's with us this evening from the Big Ten huddle. What's going on, JR? How's your evening going?
It's good. I was gonna say, Chris saved you here, Eric, because we got TG and JR. You would have had to have been EB for the episode if if Chris didn't get him in here. But you're okay now. You're good.
Well, thankfully, MIA is showed back up. That would be Chris, who was. I'm assuming the internet went out on you there.
No. I love the new computer system, but I have this bad habit of bumping the power cord out of the back of the computer.
I hated that, man. By the way, I have a new computer. I gave Chris the old computer and have him help with his setup. And yeah, that power cord is awful, dude. It is awful. I agree.
So yeah, but that's all it was. It just knocked that out, but it shut everything down. And of course, when I booted back up, everything came back up under use. So I had to boot all that or log out of all that and log back in. So
give me a little bit more juice in your volume there, Chris. I believe you need a little bit more there.
Okay, let's see. Is that better?
All right. We're going to jump right in here tonight, everybody. Let's dive into our first topic. This is going to be an interesting one, guys. So, obviously, everybody is talking about the quarterback competition once again this season. It seems to happen every season or two at Ohio State, unless you've got a returning starter. And no different this year. Julian Sain, Lincoln Kienholz seem to be the two that are fighting for this position. However, I've got to ask the question, is this really a quarterback competition for real? Or are we just playing this for the semantics of it with the idea that we don't want someone to hit the portal? And so we're going to say it's a competition, and if by some act of God, Lincoln Kienholz pushes and maybe even competes to the level that, hey, maybe they need to rethink this, then okay. Or do you really believe this is a true quarterback competition? TG, you are our guest. You get to start first. Give us your thoughts.
I think this is to make sure Lincoln Kienholz doesn't transfer, because they have no depth in the quarterback room. That's what I think. Now, do I think it can be a legitimate quarterback competition? Yes, if Lincoln shows up and he actually improves, which from what I've heard, he has been improving. But still, I think Julian Sain is the front runner. I think he's the guy. I don't think that Lincoln is going to win the job. I think Lincoln, though, will give him something to work on. And it's the same even with Taven St. Clair, because it sounds like he's starting to put on some work. So, again, I just think this is more of, we need the quarterback depth. We need a guy who's been here. We need a guy that knows the system. We cannot afford to lose Lincoln. He's very important. So just let him think it's a competition. And again, it very well could be. If Lincoln shows up, he shows up, it very well could be. But right now, I just think it's, hey, just let him think it's a quarterback competition so nobody transfers.
JR, your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I definitely think transfer is a part of it. My other thought with it is that a competition breeds, improvement, and it makes everybody better around them too. And so that's what you want more than anything out of Julian Sain right now, is that there is competition, or out of Lincoln Kienholz right now, is that there's competition with Julian Sain. That way he continues to keep pushing, keeps getting better. And who knows? I mean, Lincoln does have an athletic ability that that Julian Sain most likely does not have. To be able to run the ball and some of that stuff. We saw it the year that Kyle McCord was there, that they brought Devin Brown in and had him be kind of the runner a little bit more in the red zone. I don't think we'll need that, because I think Julian Sain will have a little bit more juice to him than a Kyle McCord will, but you never know. So at the end of the day, you always need it to be a quarterback competition. You always need to be pushing each other, and maybe Lincoln Kienholz does improve enough and he does carve out a role for himself other than just, hey, here, hold this clipboard. Maybe he could actually find himself in a package or two and get himself into the game.
All right, Chris. I actually don't know Chris's opinion on this. I cannot wait. Go for it.
This absolutely is a legitimate quarterback competition to see who's going to be number 2 behind Julian Sain. Everything you hear, everything you've seen, everybody's saying Julian Sain is the guy. We knew he was the front runner coming in. We know Ryan Day is not going to announce anything to keep Lincoln out of the portal. He doesn't want to have to depend on Sinclair as the first guy off the bench should something happen early in the season. So do I think that there's a legitimate competition for the number 1? No, I don't. Much like I didn't think there was last year either. I think this is Sain's job to lose. I do believe there is a legitimate competition going on, though, for number 2. And, they say that Kienholz is improving significantly. But as TG mentioned earlier, all the rumblings is about Tavian and the way he's practicing, coming in early. He's got that kind of first guy in, last guy out mentality. He's working with the quarterback coaches. He's working with the coordinators to just gain as much knowledge as he can early. I'll be very surprised if Lincoln Kienholz is there at the end of the season. I don't want to say that, but I'll be very surprised, simply because I think during this process, because of the physical ability, I think that Sinclair is eventually going to pass him on the depth chart.
So, JR, your comment was really intriguing to me, because I don't know if you guys noticed, but this week during the interviews with the quarterbacks, did anybody else notice Lincoln got ripped, dude?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Oh yeah,
he's cut, man. And the question was asked. Let me see if I can find it. Someone asked us a question on Lincoln if he was. That was not it. Yeah, here we go. From Aaron, is Lincoln the better runner? Correct me if I'm wrong. Was it Julian Sain considered a dual threat quarterback coming out of high school as a recruit?
I mean,
he had mobility.
Legs, but
well,
yeah.
How they'll label like pocket passer, dual threat. You know what I mean? Like in the recruiting ranks, if I recall, he was dual, which I mean is interesting. So I definitely see, in Jay's reiterating your comment, JR. I can see if Lincoln definitely is dual and he uses his legs, which, by the way, Lincoln, they asked him, like, in a roundabout way, it was very smart how the reporter asked the question, because it wasn't like, hey, what sets you apart? But it was kind of like, what do you do well inside the offense that will, that can be highlighted? And he basically said, my legs. I mean, he flat out said it. I remember a couple years ago, they were using Devin Brown kind of as a RPO red zone quarterback at times till he got hurt. Do you think they might consider revisiting that, TG?
They could. They absolutely could. And it's not because Julian isn't a runner, because he is a runner, but he's not like, he's kind of like what CJ Stroud is, where he's got the athleticism, he just don't do it that much. I think that they would do it in the regular season more so because you don't want to injure Julian Sain. Like, if there's one thing about Ryan Day, he will run his quarterbacks when it's necessary, but he's not going to run his starting quarterback an entire game. Like, he's not Urban. He doesn't do that. He's going to run him when it's necessary. I think he's going to run packages for Lincoln Keyholes to keep Julian Sain from getting hurt. That's what I think he'll do for the most part.
JR, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, I use the example of Devin Brown, and then as I was thinking of it more after saying that, I think probably, honestly, a better example would probably be Arch Manning at Texas. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm not saying Lincoln Keenholz is Arch Manning. Please don't, please don't go posting that on social media. I'm not trying to disrespect Lincoln by saying that, but look at what Arch Manning did for Texas, where he came in on 4th down, sometimes 4th and 1, and they would run QB sweep with him. I think, if anything, Ryan Day learned that there is value to the QB run this year. I mean, he obviously learned a whole bunch of other stuff, but you saw him utilize it with Will Howard in the Texas game. You saw him utilize it in the Penn State game. Like, it would be different bringing in another guy to do that, but you find yourselves in a 4th and 1 situation, or maybe 4th and 3 or something like that. I don't know. I mean, it's more reliable to look at the QB run, QB sweep type of deal, especially if you got some dudes at running back that can hit people. And I don't know about you guys, but it looks like C.J. Donaldson and James Peoples are ready to go hit some people. So give me some more of that and throw them on a QB sweep, because I would love to see James Peoples pull a Quinshon Judkins and just absolutely level somebody. That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Chris?
Yeah, I could absolutely see a possibility. If they're able to keep Lincoln there, that they do come up with some packages for him. Obviously, as TG had mentioned, you don't want to run a risk of injury. Ryan Day has always been overly cautious, I should say, about running his quarterbacks. So I definitely see a scenario where Lincoln could have a place. JR is right. I think that Ryan has learned the value of the quarterback run after having Howard in his offense this past season. And I really don't know that. I mean, he's obviously the better option, because as gifted as Sinclair is, I don't think you want to put a guy who could potentially be your future in 2 years out there to get beat up running the ball. And not only that, but he's not, I don't want to say he can't run, but I don't think he's as gifted a runner as what Keenholz is.
I don't think Ryan Day. I mean, okay, let's take Sinclair for a second. He's incredibly athletic, but he also has an amazing arm, okay?
Yes.
I'm going to make a statement here. And without me seeing them in college, in game, on my television screen yet, just looking at measurables, highlight films from high school, and those things, I think the set of skills that St. Clair brings to the table might be better than both the Julian Sain and Lincoln Keenholz overall. Not saying that Julian Sain doesn't have the arm talent, maybe that Sinclair, as far as release, speed of release, velocity, tight windows, accuracy. I think Julian Sain might be ahead of Sinclair right now, and he should be. He's had a year of development. But I think the total package, I think Tavian St. Clair's ceiling might be higher than the other two, in just my opinion.
Yeah.
So that being said, I don't think Ryan Day wants to say, well, I'm going to use this one aspect of Tavian St. Clair in the offense, and that could actually stunt his development as a quarterback, right? So I agree with you, Chris. I think and this is kind of man, I really don't want people to get the wrong impression here, but if he looks at Lincoln and says there's an aspect of Lincoln's game that I can use in the offense, and it happens to be his legs. Do you guys see what I'm getting at without really coming out and saying it and being rude to Lincoln? Like, Lincoln, your game, you don't have as high of a ceiling, right? But I'll say this, and then I'll get your guys' impression of this comment. I think one of the reasons why Ryan Day is saying this is a competition is because he understands that Tavian St. Clair is not ready. He's a true freshman. He needs a year of development, at least a year of seasoning. Number two, if there's an injury to Julian, or Julian has some kind of mental block and starts to really falter, he's got a great backup to get this team to still be 10-2, 9-3. Agree or disagree, TG?
I agree. And the thing is, I do think Ryan Day understands the value of the QB run. He's just very cautious about it because I mean, if you've seen with Justin Fields, he suffered a knee injury, rib injury, and didn't he get his hip injured as well? So that's pretty much why he's so cautious about running his quarterbacks, because if the injuries that happen to Justin, that's one. But I do think this is why he will do this with Lincoln, because he knows Tavian's not ready. Now, I'm going to tell you what Tavian's ceiling is. Here's what people have said about his skill set. His running ability is like Justin Fields. His passing ability is like CJ Stroud. If he could develop both of them, if he could come along, he could be the best all-around quarterback. I'm not saying that, but I can see where people are talking about from what I've seen of his film. His athleticism does kind of remind me of him. I'm not saying he's as good as Justin when it comes to athleticism, but he got it. And from what Ohio State coaches have said about him, he does have a CJ Stroud passing ability in a sense. So, hey, this guy has it, but he's not there yet. He's not developed. So you got to let Lincoln go in there just in case, because that's what you have to do. It's pretty much like what they did with Devin Brown last year. Like, you think they were just going to throw Julian Sain in there when they have Devin Brown, who knows the playbook. He knows pretty much the team. He has chemistry with guys who are in that locker room. He basically has the skill set to keep them afloat if Will Howard was to get injured. That's what I think they'll do with Lincoln, just like they did with Devin Brown. No different.
You agree, JR?
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, it's just going to come down to whoever is providing you the most spark in some scenarios, and whoever's the most consistent. And if somebody does show that they have enough spark in certain areas, and they're going to find a way to get them on the field. At the end of the day, if you deserve to have it happen, it's going to happen. And I think that's the way Ryan Day is running things right now, and I approve of it.
Chris?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that, like I said, I hope we keep Lincoln. That's the big thing, because I do think he gives you that valuable experience depth that's going to be required should something happen. I mean, right now, like TG was talking, I mean, we've got what? I mean, conceivably, we got Josh Allen sitting there on the bench with maybe a better arm, but he's a freshman. So, you've got to have that experience, leadership, and depth if you're going to go far, especially if an injury happens, either early on or come playoff time. I don't think you want Tavian in there this year. So, yeah.
$2 super chat from Bobby Mack, saying is at number one. Saying is number one because he can read coverage as well. Yet the coaching staff marvels at his intellect as a quarterback, his ability to read defenses, his ability to go through that information quickly and then know where to go with the ball. They've been raving about that ever since he got to Ohio State. And Ryan Day loves that, right? I think what he lacks is something that, unfortunately, he can't really help, and that's just playing time. It's just game reps.
Experience.
It's just experience. Now, what's going to be interesting to me is watch his development as a leader, because the first time you're a starter, especially at that age when you're an underclassman, your leadership takes time to develop. So we'll see how that comes along. But yeah, that's assuming he wins the starting job. Now, Ryan Days Beard wants to ask us a question. Thank you for the super chat, by the way, Bobby Mack. I appreciate that, my man. Keeping the lights on, brother. Ryan Days Championship Beard. Do they bring in someone in the spring? Yes or no? And if so, what will be their approach in that, TG?
I think they would, but it would mostly be for depth. Easily. That's all they would do it for, depth. Just like they did with who was that guy they brought in? Tristan Gebbia?
Yeah, Tristan.
Yeah,
Tristan
Tristan
Gebbia.
Tristan. Okay, yeah, like
Yeah.
that's who they brought in just for depth reasons.
Right.
But that's all it's gonna be, is just depth.
There's got to be a quarterback out there somewhere, right? Who played his high school ball in Central Ohio, who's buried on a depth chart somewhere, who wants to be a coach one day, right?
Yep.
Like that guy exists somewhere, right? And so this Ohio State's like the perfect place to come do that. You know, they've offered that before. I agree. What do you think about that idea, Jr.?
Yeah, I mean, I think what do we see? The Oregon State transfer from a few years ago? To me,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the exact prototype in this situation. Bring somebody in. Maybe he wants to be a coach. Maybe he just wants to continue to get experience. And honestly, right now, this is an even better situation to come to and be a coach. Right? I mean, you become a graduate assistant at Ohio State. Looks like Ryan Day is pumping out graduate assistants and pumping out coaches for other people, or you stick around and you could find yourself getting, a job at some point. Look at Billy Fessler.
Mhm.
Now, Billy did leave for Akron and UCLA, and then he came back, but still, I mean, he was offensive coordinator at Akron, guys. Like, he went from graduate assistant, I think he had a year as a QB coach at Akron, but he went from graduate assistant, QB coach to offensive coordinator at Akron. Now, it is Akron. This isn't, Power 4 football, but still, that's Division I football, offensive coordinator. He was only 25 years old at the time. I mean, Ryan Day is showing that if you attach yourself to him and you do what he says, he's going to send you off to a pretty good situation more often than not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I do think they try to get somebody, just a character guy, somebody who can help be a leader on the sidelines, be a leader in the room. But nobody who's going to be significant. You know what I'm saying, as far as playing time goes. You've
What
got those guys
if?
there.
Okay, Chris, coming back at you. What if a big name jumps in the portal? I mean, and says, calls Ohio State up and says, "I'm willing to come to Ohio State." Are you willing to do that or no? Absolutely
No.
not.
Well, I'm going to lean towards no, because I think you've got two extraordinary young quarterbacks there, in Julian and St. Clair, obviously. So do you want to run the risk of them jumping in the portal? Are you going to mortgage your future for a 1-year lease?
No.
I mean, let's look at this. You look at so many pro teams do this. They mortgage their future for a 1-year lease, and then they spend their next 10 years in obscurity.
Mm-hmm.
You've got two tremendous quarterbacks there. So are you going to take, Julian Sand and send him to a school that might come back to bite you in the backside, or same thing with St. Clair? I mean, if these guys, you think they've legitimately got the talent to be the starters, you don't even go down that path.
What if it was Cade Klubnik?
No.
Heck no.
No?
No, I don't think he's as talented as the guys we got on the roster.
All three of you looked at me like I was crazy. Like,
well, that's because you are crazy, Eric.
You want Kyle McCord back? I mean, he's basically Kyle McCord at Clemson.
no, I don't.
I mean, basically.
I want Kyle McCord back.
Okay, all of you disagree with that, so that's all right. So my computer did something funky, and Chris, I may have lost the chat. I'm gonna have to go to
Okay, I've got the chat still.
YouTube here, so you might have to take over for me for that. All right, moving on to our next topic here. Okay, so obviously we have the tradition of the black stripe, guys. So every year when you come to Ohio State, they throw the black stripe on your helmet. And until you get the black stripe removed, you're not technically a Buckeye. It's kind of a way that Urban Meyer initiated this tradition. It was a way to, kind of push you into the competition, get you to try to push yourself early on at Ohio State. Now, not every freshman is with the team, but there's a large portion of the freshmen that are with the team currently. And so I asked the question to this panel this evening. Who would be the first freshman to lose their black stripe this spring? I want you to give me a prediction. And then I'm going to circle back around and tie a bow on this conversation with an interesting one. So, TG, you're up first. What's your prediction? Who's the first freshman to lose their black stripe?
If I had to predict, I would say Devin Sanchez, because from what I hear of him, he's like a really freaking good corner. I mean, this guy might be impossible to keep off the field. They're going to have to find ways to put him on the field, which is look like what they're trying to do. You know what people say about Devin Sanchez? That he's the Jeremiah Smith of defensive backs. And I said, if he is, please sign me up and get him on the field. I would love that. Especially if he can make plays on the field on a consistent basis. If we got a Jeremiah Smith of defense, please put him on the field. I don't care. I don't care. Find a way to put him on the field. I don't care.
JR?
Yeah, to me, it's either Devin Sanchez or one of the linebackers, Riley Pettijohn or TJ Alford. Really seems like Riley Pettijohn is, up there closer than that. But I also wouldn't be surprised if, a Quincy Porter or somebody really, gets into that competition a little bit more. So also Bo Jackson, I think, is kind of a sleeper dark horse in this situation. So, it sounds like from everything Coach Locke says, and Chris, I know I just named a whole bunch of names, and so you're probably not going to have a new name to give. I apologize. But Bo Jackson seems like somebody that Carlos Loxton really, really likes. Seems like it's somebody they're going to need for that depth. Not that C.J. Donaldson and James Peoples aren't enough, but let's be honest. Like we were blessed this year with a running back room that didn't really get injured. It's not been the case every single year. So we're probably going to see Bo Jackson at some point this year, and it sounds like Coach Lachlan is at least pretty high on him. And if Coach Locke is high on him, I'm high on him.
Yeah, I think the two favorites have to be Bo Jackson and Devin Sanchez. And this is what I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with Sanchez as well. Everything I hear about him, they talk about him being a generational talent. The kid is already physically ready to go in there and compete. I really think that this guy, and I'll be honest, if I'm one of those corners right now in that locker room, I'm a little concerned. I'm a little concerned for my playing time. Because I'll tell you what, I think this guy has the ability to push each and every one of them. So don't be surprised if this guy doesn't find his way onto the field a lot this season. For me, it's got to be Devin Sanchez.
Yeah. Plus, I'm not going to lie. I do think they'll do a lot more rotation than what they've been doing since that has started becoming a thing because you don't want your best players getting injured. So.
Okay, now it's my turn to throw a wrench in it because I like to do that. What if, and none of you mentioned it, what if it's Tavion St. Clair? What if the quarterback loses his black stripe first? Does that not signal to you guys that this could be a possible three-man competition?
It could.
I mean, listen, when was the last time we had a true freshman starting quarterback at Ohio State? Do you guys remember?
I do not.
JR, do you remember?
Are you saying game one, true freshman starter?
No, just year one.
Was
Wasn't
it Terrell?
it Braxton or TP?
It's like Braxton or Terrell, one of them two.
Braxton, but yes, you got them both. But I remember Terrell Pryor was by game 2 or 3.
2 or 3. It was after what was it, Texas game or USC game?
Yeah.
Yeah, one of those two.
I'm not saying that we're going to have a repeat of that by any stretch of the imagination. I think Julian Sain legitimately is really good based off of everything that is being said. But could you imagine the pressure that would be applied in that quarterback room if that's the first freshman who loses his black stripe? I think that is incredibly interesting to think about. We're all sitting here thinking, this competition's between Lincoln and Julian, right? But from everything I've heard so far, they have shared that first game, the first week of practice. All three were doing exactly the same thing, the same amount of time. Just saying.
It wouldn't be shocking, given the fact that, like, what you hear about Tavian is that dude is really studying his butt off. Like, he's really trying to learn. He's really putting in the work. So if he does lose his stripe, that'd be the reason why.
And TG, let's not forget, for a freshman, this guy's been around the Woody Hayes Athletic Center a lot more than the rest of the freshmen have because of where he lived, how much availability he had for Ohio State and the coaching staff. He was around the program a lot. In fact, it was asked, hey, how are you adapting? And he's like, yeah, I've been showing a lot of the other freshmen around the campus and around that. Like, he already was acclimated a lot just because of how close he lived to campus. So there's some advantages here for this young man. And I don't know. It's just interesting to think about, but I agree with most of you. I think Devin Sanchez he's different. Now, do you all buy the stock that he's the Jeremiah Smith of the defense?
Nobody is Jeremiah Smith.
No, Jeremiah Smith's such a freak. I agree with JR. I don't think you can put that label on anybody.
And that's not disrespect to Devin Sanchez. Devin Sanchez can have a really good career, but nobody's Jeremiah Smith. You got Oregon talking about DeCorian Moore. He's going to be Jeremiah Smith over there. It ain't happening.
Bye.
Nobody's him.
Bye.
It ain't happening.
Bye. Like, they can't develop receivers for nothing. Bye.
What about you, TG? Do you buy into that stock that Sanchez is the Jeremiah Smith of the defense this year?
Honestly, I wouldn't put that on him, but I can see why they say that, because from what I've seen of him, the dude is a freaky corner athlete. So I could see it. I could buy into it. But he's got to show me on the football field in games. Like, if he can show me he's that on the football field, I'll buy in. Right now, I'm not going to do that. But again, I think he has the freak. I think he's generational. I do think that. I think he can be. But he's got to show me on the football field like Jeremiah Smith did. Because practice means nothing. Step in the game and show me.
Okay, so let's put that in terms of expectations. So to say you would be the Jeremiah Smith this season, that means you need to start game 1, right? That's a given. And then what kind of impact would you? Because it's really hard to say. All right, what statistically would equate to what Jeremiah Smith did last year? What kind of stats would he have to have in year 1, TG, as a corner?
That would be a tough, because playing corner is so tough.
It is, right?
Yeah, it's like, because you would have to have, what is the best set of a freshman year corners had?
Well,
exactly.
In all honesty, it was probably Denzel, right?
I would think so.
4 years ago, he started as a freshman.
It
shocked us all, but
I think he would have to have the type of season that Denzel had, if not better, in my opinion, for that to be seen. Because that would be the only way I could even look at it. And from an all-time perspective, I think he would have to do better than whoever did it from an all-time perspective as well.
So he basically has to be a shutdown corner.
Basically.
We're talking 4 interceptions. You're not giving up more than maybe a catch or 2 a game. No, hardly any touchdowns given up. You've probably got somewhere in the ballpark of 40 to 50 tackles on a season to go along with those stats.
Unless nobody runs your way like they were doing with Denzel, because nobody will run the way where he was.
And what's just funny, because he's not a very big guy, but he was pretty sound tackler, In
a lot of ways, that hit he did on a wide receiver, I forget which game, it might have been Maryland, but they said it reminds you a lot of like Denzel Ward, the way he was hitting people, which I could see that, because he was hitting people like crazy, and Ward was a hard hitter.
Denzel Ward still hurt Gus Johnson's feelings, man.
Yeah,
my feelings. That's a great call.
Yeah, that's because when Gus Johnson said that about Denzel Burke, I said I can see that, because he does hit like Denzel Ward. They do hit like that.
Oh, Andre. Ooh. Let me answer this, and then we'll go around and let you guys answer this question too. This is a great question. With the quarterback competition, Andre wants to know, do you think that Ryan Day has already decided that Sayin is the starter? Yes. I think he knows he's the starter. I think Ryan Day is doing it what I'm calling a fancy song. It's a dog and pony show. He's calling it a competition because Ryan Day's no dummy. Ryan Day knows. Now he was asked. Ryan Day was flat out asked, would you name a starter if it was evident that there was a starter? And Ryan Day by the end of spring, and Ryan Day said, "Yeah, I would do that." The problem is if he does that, I think he runs the risk of Lincoln Keenholz going to the transfer portal. And I don't think, unless I'm wrong, and Tavian St. Clair is absolutely 100% ready to be the backup, I think Ryan Day would much rather go into the 2025 season with all three of these guys in that room, which is why I think he's calling this a quarterback competition. And as this panel has already said, it is smart to have this competition because this is another way for Lincoln to push Julian. And like I said, if Julian falters, whether it's through injury or he just mentally isn't ready, you have somebody who you've allowed to push this whole time in place and ready to take that. That's why I think Ryan Day is doing this. But in Ryan Day's mind, I do believe he knows Julian Sain's the starter. And here's my evidence on why I say that. TG already said this. All the players have already talked about how Julian Sain is. The players who've left the program, the players who've graduated from the program, who are going to the NFL, they're going to tell you the truth. There's no reason for them to say, "Oh yeah, Julian's going to be great," right? Like, what's in it for them? Nothing. They're just answering the question. And there were multiple guys who said that. That's why I think Ryan Day already has it made up in his mind. What do you think, TG?
Oh, absolutely. You basically just said what I see it, especially with the fact that Denzel Burke, who is the most honest of anyone, who will tell you flat out, does not care what the media says, does not care. He will tell you the truth. And he flat out said it, that Julian Sain is that dude and he will be the next star. Now, he wanted to compare him to CJ, but he didn't want to put that on him. So he said, but that's basically what he's thinking is CJ. That's who Julian reminded him of.
But let's remember, like, CJ didn't exactly have the most confident start to some people when he started against Minnesota. Now, that was Minnesota. This is Texas' very first game. So I think it's just important for Ohio State fans to, like, understand that, like, yes, Julian Sain probably in Ryan Day's mind is the guy, right? I think Ryan Day probably believes in Lincoln Keenholz as well. That's probably one of the reasons why he's making this into a competition. All the other reasons we stated as well. I think he has confidence in Lincoln Keenholz to have his abilities be used and stuff. But let's not crucify Julian Sain if he throws 2 picks against Texas in the very first game.
Amen.
I mean, give the guys some time. We saw what CJ Stroud could turn into. We saw what Ryan Day, after the game last year, what he was able to do. Like, everybody progresses, everybody can get better, and they have potential. So let's see what happens with Sain. But I don't want to hype him up too much though, because I saw what happened to CJ Stroud, and I don't want to put that on anybody. Boy, did he endure way too much than he should have.
Yeah, I mean, if you're kind of like being honest, I think the players do think of him that way, where he can grow because they see he's gonna have the same issues. It's just that you can see in the future he could be that. They're not trying to say he's that now. That's why they didn't want to say that, to put that pressure on him. They believe he could be that in the future because, again, with young quarterbacks, it's even true in the NFL. You got to let them grow. You got to let them develop. And more importantly, you got to set them up for success. So I think that's what happened. I think that's what Will Julian Sain would do. And the thing is, with Lincoln Keenholz, I think you're right, JR, that he does believe in Lincoln Keenholz. Ryan Day does. And Lincoln does have the talent, and we have seen a lot of late bloomers come around in their careers. I mean, we saw it happen with Joe Burrow. No one thought he would be a first-round quarterback, and look what happened. He became a late bloomer and blossom. I'm not saying that's who Lincoln Keenholz will be, but we can see him blossom into a great quarterback. It happens all the time.
Speedman 606 $4.99 super chat. Not sure about the quarterback room, but on my screen, I vote TG be the starter because you other 3 bums are ugly. Show them up, girl. OH, go Bucks. Thank you for the super chat, Speedman.
I didn't think my hat was that bad today.
Thank you for the compliment. You didn't have to roast them like that. Dang.
Chris, what do you think, man? Is Ryan Day got the competition made up in his head already?
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this was made up last year, and that's why Aaron Nolan is no longer here.
Ooh.
That's fair.
That's fair.
I truly believe that this was decided last year already, and that's why we lost Aaron Nolan. I think if it was going to be a true competition, given everything that we learned about Aaron Nolan and everything that his father told us, I truly believe that if he had thought that this was going to be a true competition, he would still be here competing for that job.
I agree, man. I agree with you. JR, what you got going on over tonight on the Big Ten Huddle?
We are talking all things Big Ten football, going to be looking at the SP Plus offensive rankings and where everybody ranks for that. So we'll talk about that. Going to talk about, I already did a video on it, but I'm curious Zach's opinion. So we're going to talk about the Matt Weiss stuff and everything there. And then also we're going to do some spring football talk, and Ohio State is in there. Austin Seyerveld won Iron Buckeye.
Yeah.
And currently he is taking first team reps at left tackle. Is there a story there? Is there a situation there? We'll see. Zach and I will share our thoughts here at 9:00.
Interesting, guys. So
That's good.
yeah, that's a good one. Head on over there to the Big Ten Huddle as soon as we wrap up here, guys. Appreciate you jumping on, JR. There was a question there real fast about Texas, Chris, if you want to grab that one. I am currently going to try to
absolutely. $2 super chat by Bobby Mack. How many starters does Texas have coming back?
I'm looking
Less
it
than
up
Ohio
right
State?
Yeah, they have a
They lost a
smaller
lot.
returning production than Ohio State. I believe they're 104th, and Ohio State is 101st. Now, I will say the returning production does take into account transfers, so I don't know if they have exactly less like numerical starters coming back. I have no idea that, but when the returning production is lower, I'll go with what TG said. It's less.
They have 4 on offense. I'm moving over the defense right now.
Mm-hmm. They have 1 on defense, and it's the corner.
1, okay.
But
Yeah.
they've got some
2, yeah.
they've got some transfers coming on defense though. So depending if you're going to count that or not.
Did that safety come back to Tiffy or something?
I don't see him on here.
That Texas safety, I thought said something.
Oh,
about
I didn't
that.
see
Michael Taffy, Taaffy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's here. He's back. Yeah.
Oh, he's back? Okay.
So that's 2.
Okay, so it's
We'll
2.
just have to have Caleb down, show him up. Everybody was saying Texas had the best safety room in the nation last year.
Really? Like, that was laughable.
So
Look,
it
they
looks,
got a great defense, but no.
so it looks like 7. Looks like 7 starters total. Yeah. Oh man, Speedman. Yeah, I gotta roast them, TG, because they my boys. All right, guys, we're gonna take a quick commercial break, and we're gonna say adios to JR. He's got to go prep for his show. We'll be back right after this quick commercial break, and we will continue on with some more quarterback talk. Guys, I'm gonna let TG loose because she has a topic that was fire, and I want her to go at it again here on our show. So hang tight, everybody.
Hey, Buckeye Nation. The OHIO podcast is thrilled to partner with Export Mouthguards, the innovators redefining protection in contact sports. Introducing the Ninja Pro Mouthguard, the strongest and most advanced mouthguard on the market. Engineered by dental experts, it's designed to deliver elite protection with a sleek, low-profile fit. Made with carbon fiber and multi-layer construction, it's impact tested to keep you safe from even the hardest hits. But that's not all. The Ninja Pro is 3D printed for 100% custom fit, offering unbeatable comfort and security for any athlete. From football to MMA, dominate your game with confidence while safeguarding your teeth and jaw. Getting started is easy. Use our home impression kit to create your custom fit and enjoy prepaid shipping. It's protection delivered right to your door. Plus, with a 1-year warranty and 100% satisfaction guarantee, and proudly made in the USA, the Ninja Pro is your ultimate defense on the field or in the ring. And here's the best part. When you visit exportguards.com, use promo code OHIO at checkout to get 20% off your purchase. That's right, 20% off elite protection made just for you. Protect your game, protect your future. Choose Export Ninja Pro Mouthguards, where innovation meets protection. Head to exportguards.com and use promo code OHIO today.
The OHIO podcast is brought to you by Mastermind. Mastermind specializes in 360-degree high-definition mobile video mapping, GIS integration, and traffic safety studies. Mastermind cares about traffic safety and keeping you safe on the roadway. Visit Mastermind at onlinemastermind.com. And we want to thank our sponsors for sponsoring the show. Make sure you guys, if you guys need a mouth guard, or your kid needs a mouth guard, or your grandchild needs a mouth guard for whatever sport they're playing, don't waste your time going down to Walmart, buying a little cheap piece of plastic, going home, boiling it, putting it in there, and slopping that thing in your kid's mouth and letting it form to their mouth. That does not protect them. This mouth guard will protect them from concussions. It is the greatest mouth guard ever, and you get 20% off when you use our code OHIO. Go to exportguards.com, use our code OHIO, and save yourself 20% and make sure you're protecting your child's smile and brain. Did you know that, TG, that most concussions come through the energy on the front of the face mask through the mouth?
Mm-hmm.
And our players they're just dangling their mouth guards out there. Crazy. That is crazy. This mouth guard, believe it or not, is going to become mandatory in sports very soon. So jump on it, guys. Save yourself some money. Use the OHIO code and save yourself some money, guys. All right. Thursday night, TG, I tuned into you and Sean's show. I think Sean was in the chat a little bit ago. I'm not sure if he's still here or not, but
He was.
you guys had a topic, man, that was fantastic to listen to. And TG, you're pretty popular amongst the Michigan fan base.
Mm-hmm.
She said, mm-hmm. All right, let's get into this topic, man. So there's a lot of people out there who are talking about how Will Howard going into this draft is overrated or not very good, and he's not even close as good as J.J. McCarthy. Now, I know my co-host, Chris. I know how he feels about J.J. McCarthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
He loves the guy. Thinks he's the greatest quarterback of all time. Look at you look like you're crying, Chris. He's got to take... All right, he's hearing things. All right, TG, I'm going to turn you loose on this topic because I want you to explain to everybody a little bit about what you were talking about Thursday night with this topic, and then Chris and I are going to respond to what you have to say. Go for it, girl.
Oh, yeah, because this little argument debate, again, I've had this with some Michigan fans. I've even had this talking about this with even Zach Smith had said about it. The thing is, people who say this about Will Howard, how J.J. McCarthy is better than Will Howard, you are an absolute idiot. Here's why. I don't care that J.J. McCarthy's numbers look similar to Will Howard's. First of all, we all know the cheating scandal plays the biggest factor in that. That's number one. It's not even debatable at this point. Because we saw that with J.J. McCarthy's numbers, when he had Connor Stallions, he looked like an NFL quarterback. Without Connor Stallions, he looks like a bum. That's number one. Number two, he had the easiest schedule. It's not even debatable. Like, the run that him and Michigan went on was the weakest run of any national champion of all time. Nobody had an easier schedule. Who the F in their right mind thinks that no quarterback could win against the schedule they did? Because any quarterback could. Thirdly, when you look at Will Howard, what he did at Ohio State is legendary. Ohio State, the run that they went on, think about it. I've said this on the Buckeye Boyz. Will Howard went through a gauntlet on, I think, would be the second toughest schedule, just looking back at it, next to Georgia's, where you have 3 top 5 matchups in the regular season, 3 in the postseason, meaning total, you have 6 top 5 matchups. Will Howard performed admirably in those matchups. I tend to judge quarterbacks in talent equated games. This is why I say Caleb Williams sucks, because I watch him in every talent equated game. He was trash. I watched J.J. McCarthy in talent equated games. I watched him against Penn State. I watched him against Maryland. I watched him against Ohio State when he didn't have the cheat sheet Connor Stallions with him. He sucked. Look at his numbers. He sucked. He was trash. He could not throw against these defenses. I don't care that he went up against Alabama. That defense was not as good as it should have been. Caleb Downs was fantastic. The rest of that defense was pretty much the worst it's been under Nick Saban since 2007. And that 2023 Alabama team can't stand to this 2024 Ohio State team. Doesn't stand against that 2020 Bama, 2019 LSU, or 2014 Ohio State or Alabama, or even Oregon back in 2014. That team was not good. Washington, I don't care that they beat Washington. I've gone on the record saying Pac-12 teams' defenses. Pac-12 teams have the worst defense in all of college football. Period. That conference literally did not know the meaning of the word defense, other than Utah, because of Kyle Whittingham being a disciple of Urban Meyer. Besides that conference knows no defense. People can say the Big 12 sucks in defense. It's superior to the Pac-12. I'm sorry to tell people, it is. It is. It has been. And when I look at Will Howard and what he did in a talent equated games against Oregon, against Texas, against Tennessee, against Penn State, against even Indiana and even Notre Dame. When I watched him in these top big time games, he performed admirably. Again, Penn State, the first game, he didn't play super hot in the beginning, but he got better as the game went on because he was playing with emotion. He got it under control and he played well. Texas, he played fantastic, in my opinion. Yes, his rhythm went out because of the penalties Ohio State was receiving, but he still played well. He still played excellent and led Ohio State on a game-winning drive, essentially, where he pretty much got them in scoring position in the red zone. I know a lot of people want to talk about how J.J. McCarthy's more athletic than Will because Will, we've seen how he runs, but the reality is Will Howard, he's more athletic than J.J. McCarthy. I've seen Will Howard run at Kansas State. I've seen him run at Ohio State. He didn't have to run that much at Ohio State. You got running backs. You got wide receivers. Ryan Day's not really known for running his quarterbacks like that until he has to. And when he fell in the red zone, it was the smartest thing to actually happen because it's time off the clock. It allows Ohio State to pretty much put their defense in a chance to actually make plays and even to pretty much set up what happened with Jack Sawyer to not give Texas a chance to come back and score in this game. That's what that did. So when I look at J.J. McCarthy and Will Howard, how can you realistically say that J.J. McCarthy is better than Will Howard? Well, the numbers, I don't care. Take away J.J. McCarthy's time with Connor Stallions. He's not good. Compare those guys in talent equated games. Will Howard was better than J.J. McCarthy by a country mile because he was going up against better competition. Literally the toughest road to a national championship. I mean, we don't call the run that Ohio State went on the greatest run to a national title for nothing. We don't call it that for no reason. It was the greatest run of all time. Some we'll never see again. We will not see that again. It'd probably be 30 years before we see that again, if anything. And then on top of that, if your argument, because this is the biggest thing that really ticked me off, because Zach Smith has said this, and this really got me raging. You're going to say that J.J. McCarthy's better because his numbers look better because he didn't have the better receivers like Will Howard had the talent, he had the receivers. Okay, you want to use that logic? Apply that logic to all of Ohio State's quarterbacks. And not only that, apply that logic to basically LSU and Alabama. Because you can say that about every quarterback that goes to these schools. You want to talk about the wide receivers? Okay, you're basically saying J.J. McCarthy's better than C.J. Stroud. You're basically saying he's better than Justin Fields. You're basically saying he's better than Dwayne Haskins. You're saying he's better than Terrell Pryor. You're saying he's better than Braxton Miller, which I don't think he is. You're saying he's better than Troy Smith. You're saying he's better than Joe Burrow. That's what you're saying. Because don't forget, Joe Burrow had Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. So it's because Joe Burrow had the better receivers that J.J. McCarthy's better than him? No. You're basically saying that about Jane Daniels with Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors. You're saying that about Bo Nix, because no matter how much I trash on the Oregon receivers, I still would take their receivers over Michigan's any day of the week. Any day of the week. You're also going to be saying that about Drake May, who had better receivers at North Carolina. You're also saying that about Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa at Alabama. That's what you're saying. You cannot use that logic because if you use that logic, you're basically saying J.J. McCarthy is better than all the quarterbacks that have ever had better talent than him at Michigan. And Michigan they just because they don't got wide receivers don't make him better. And again, I watched him against TCU. This is another thing that people tend to forget. Okay, if you want to talk about the Big 12, explain how J.J. McCarthy, with superior talent, lost to TCU. You saw how Will Howard played against TCU, people. We all saw. He was the reason they won that game against TCU and won the Big 12. What is the reason why J.J. McCarthy lost to a Big 12 team? If a Big 12 team sucks that bad, you should not be losing to no Big 12 team. Like a TCU, a Cinderella team. You should not. You threw, I cannot remember how many picks, and I think 1 or 2 of them were pick sixes. So you can't tell me this dude's better than Will Howard. And I could compare their seasons. I could compare all the games they play. I could compare their schedules. I could compare how they played in talent equated games. And if you want to get, again, the Big 12 discussion, I watched J.J. McCarthy against a Big 12 team. He flat out sucked. I'm sorry. I watched Will Howard. He was the reason they won. So please give me a legitimate argument as to why J.J. McCarthy's better, because you can't. Michigan fans, you definitely can't. I don't care what you say. You cannot make that argument. It's impossible. You cannot say because, well, him and Will had the same stats. Dude, Will Howard's, which one's more impressive? How Will Howard got those numbers was more impressive than J.J. McCarthy because he did it against the toughest schedule in the greatest run to a national championship in college football history. J.J. McCarthy ain't done nothing like that. He ain't faced nothing like what Will Howard said. So no, do not ever in a million years, as I said on the Buckeye Boyz, don't ever in a million years use that BS of an argument to tell me that J.J. McCarthy's better. I don't care that he was drafted in the top 10. Guess what? We've seen a lot of top 10 first-round quarterbacks turn out to be bust. I think Caleb Williams will end up being the greatest bust and the biggest bust in the history of the NFL because of how much everybody was overhyping that fool. I watched that dude. He was not great. He could be the next Ryan Bates, Jamarcus Russell, the next Johnny Manziel. We've seen this, people. I don't care that he's picked in the top 10. And guess what? He has no excuse in the NFL for being bad because you're surrounded with talent. So if you suck, it's going to show. I don't care that Will Howard had better receivers because guess what? You have to get the ball to those receivers. It doesn't matter how talented they are. You got to get the ball to them. They can't cover for everything. We saw it with Kyle McCord. That is the greatest argument killer. If this is true, why did Kyle McCord suck? We can all see he did. So give me a reason. You can't. There's no argument. There's no debate. There's no none of that. So stop using these silly arguments as a way to say something that's completely false. It's a false argument. People need to quit using the receivers as an excuse. Stop. Please stop. Because you can say that about Alabama. You can say that about LSU. You can honestly say that about some of these other schools like even Georgia and freaking USC. So no. Don't use that as an argument. Be real and give me some real facts. Don't give me these BS facts because you're not going to win that debate at all. At all.
All right, Chris.
She's 100% right, Eric.
Oh, you're not going to defend J.J. McCarthy?
Let me tell you, J.J. McHandoff was the most overrated quarterback ever in college sports. Ever. Let's take a look at just the final seasons. And TG touched on it. Will Howard played a tremendously more difficult schedule. And in doing that, he had a better completion percentage. He had a higher yards per pass average. He had 1,100 more yards in only one more game, by the way. Higher QB rating. And they want to talk about his receivers. How about talking about the difference in the offensive lines? For the love of God. Michigan had the greatest offensive line out there. You know, and granted, not only did they have the greatest, but they had the greatest supported by the knowing the plays. There was no possible way for you to beat that offensive line. And that's all he could do.
Thank you.
With that?
Exactly.
Michigan, this is just another false narrative because that is what Michigan fans thrive on. It's what they live on. The sad part is it's what I truly think they believe. They are indoctrinated with false narratives by this. I can't even call them media. I don't know. I don't know what the propaganda machine, what we want to call it up there, but it's a joke. JJ McCarthy is a joke. And the guy I feel the worst for is the general manager of the Minnesota Vikings who fell into it. Because that's going to be the kind of move that, especially after letting Sam Darnold move on, it's going to cost their team. When JJ's out there as a starter this year, it's going to cost this team and likely cost that GM his job.
Yes.
I just can't. I can't with these Michigan fans anymore. I really can't. I'm gonna pop a blood vessel here.
That's what's even crazier is the offensive line difference, because Will Howard's offensive line, we had injuries
Patchwork.
to 2 All-American offensive linemen. When you lose 2 of your best offensive linemen, typically you do not do well. Guess what? He did. Not only that, in the offensive line, they play well, but Will Howard really did help this offensive line too. So could JJ McCarthy do that? No. I don't even think JJ McCarthy, as I said on the Buckeye Boyz show, could handle the talent at Kansas State, because look at what Will Howard was doing with that. He had the significantly less talent. And if you talk to people at Kansas State, they said he was the biggest reason for them winning games. He was the biggest reason. He was the biggest reason for them scoring in the red zone. He was the biggest reason for them even having a chance to beat Texas. Because remember, he went up against Texas with lesser talent at Kansas State. He almost beat them. Lost by 3 points. All they needed was a field goal or a touchdown, and they could have won. So, tell me if JJ McCarthy could do something like that, because I don't think he could.
Well, and here's the thing, before I pass off to you, Eric, and but the thing with Howard is, and you kind of touched on it there, TG, Howard's the type of player that makes the players around him better.
Yes.
McCarthy needs the better players to raise him up. Whereas Will Howard is the one doing the raising. It's like you look at, and they apply this to NBA talk all the time. Magic Johnson, what made him so special? Larry Bird, what made him so special? When they stepped on the court, they made the other 4 guys on the court with them better instantly. That's what Will Howard does.
He's a great leader.
Yeah.
They will follow him to the end. Like, I use this example with Justin Fields during his time in the NFL with the Chicago Bears. That team had so much fight and they played so much better. I talk about how that guy got MVP votes in 22 just because what he was able to do with a crappy offense. Legit.
Yeah.
If you really want to know how great a player is, how great does he make the players around him better? Because say whatever you want about the players Will has around him, he makes them better. Even they've all said that. Like, no, he's made us better. Because without Will Howard, do we win the national title this year? I don't think we do. I think Michigan could win the Natty last year without JJ McCarthy. And all fairness, they could probably win it with Kyle McCord. Just because you don't need him to do much. Just hand it off, just throw little dumps. I don't care that JJ McCarthy had less screen passes thrown than Will Howard did. I don't care. Guess what? He's throwing slants. He's throwing little small stuff. He can't read a defense. It's been shown. He's not an accurate passer on intermediate throws, and his deep ball passing is worse than Will Howard's. Whether you know it or not, he's not better than Will Howard at deep ball throwing. He's not. So, what are we doing here? That's one of the bigger things of why I think JJ McCarthy will flop in the NFL. I never bought into it. I know people at the Minnesota Vikings, from the stuff you hear, they kind of already regret drafting this guy because this is what happens because the media puts so much stuff on one guy. It makes you fall into it every time. I mean, I talk about it with the Bears all the time. You drafted that bum Caleb Williams for what? Because the media was pushing it. If you watch the games, just watch the film. The dude's not good. Watch him in talent-equated games. He's not good. He's not. That's what you have to be judging these players on. How do they perform in talent-equated games? If they perform excellently in talent-equated games, you know how great they are. But JJ McCarthy's never had that. So, well, he did, at least with Penn State, Maryland, and Ohio State, and we saw how he performed. He was trash. Straight trash. So, no, he wasn't great when he went up against that defense without Connor Stallions. Couldn't read, couldn't do nothing. You sucked, and we all saw what you really were. But you were lucky you actually had a great offensive line. You were lucky that team was already built up. All because of Connor Stallions. So you were lucky AF. And you were lucky it was a down year in college football as well. You're lucky there was no Giant. You're also lucky that you didn't have to face Georgia, because I really do think Georgia would have done to them what they did in 2021. Because it's not hard to beat that team. It really isn't.
At the end of this season, JJ McCarthy up in Minnesota, they're gonna be talking about whether he's a bust or not.
Yes.
I believe that. And we all
Mid-season,
predicted that. We all predicted that. Now, on top of that, I think were there 13 guys drafted that year in
Yes.
2023?
2024 draft, yeah. The
2024 draft from the 2023 team. Do you know how many are still on NFL rosters?
5.
Yep.
Remember us talking about that, Chris?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
We questioned how many of them were actually legitimately worth drafting, because how do you, as a scout, a talent scout in the NFL, how do you weigh that talent based off of film? Because their film was broken. And here's what I mean by that. It was proven that they knew their opponent's calls.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is a huge advantage in that. And so their film was broken. And we predicted that they were going to struggle in the NFL. And it didn't take long for that to happen. Only 5 remain on NFL rosters out of all of them that were drafted.
Soon to be 4, because don't be surprised if Zach Zinner doesn't wind up on an NFL team anytime soon, because that dude sucks.
And probably even less than that, because I don't know how long JJ McCarthy. I mean, he'll last his rookie contract, but I don't know that he'll get another one, because again, I just don't think he's accurate enough to be an NFL quarterback, or bringing the intangibles needed to lead an NFL roster. Will Howard, in my opinion, and I believe this, I think Will Howard is going to be a 10-year vet in the NFL as a backup at worst, right? I don't think JJ McCarthy's going to even do that. Now Corey's in the chat. He disagrees with us. He thinks that JJ might have a better NFL career than we think.
He's allowed to be wrong, Eric.
Yeah, that's true. You know, we're everybody's entitled to that, right?
Here's the thing: is with JJ again, he could, but and like I said though, you gotta watch him and see how he throws the ball to a guy like Justin Jefferson. Because while you have the talent, you got to get the ball to them.
Right.
You got to be able to read a defense. And the one thing I've talked about, and I've mentioned it over and over and over again, in the NFL, you cannot hide the cheating scandal and how much it helped you. Because look at your D tackle Mozzie Smith from Michigan. He sucks balls. He's trash. You look at all the Michigan players from the 21 to 23 team, excluding Adrian Hutchinson, because he's the only one that was good. Honestly, his last year was 21, so I'm not even going to count him, because let's be real, the cheating scandal really didn't start for him until that year, and he was already good by that point. But everybody else, they absolutely suck. It's the same thing I talk about with Will Johnson, where people could think he's this great corner. Does he know how to read an offense? Does he know what he's doing by the time he steps on the field? Because you cannot hide that. Once you get to the NFL and you don't know the opponent's plays and you confused and you looking all out of sorts, it's going to be real easy to shoot. Real easy to see. So JJ McCarthy, he better be able to read a defense, because if he can't do that, I don't think his career is going to wind up going long. Because what is the biggest thing everybody will criticize about a quarterback? How they throw the ball, how they can read a defense. It's especially how you read a defense. That's the biggest thing they're going to judge on.
Accuracy, timing, and accuracy is important in the NFL, which is why C.J. Stroud was tailor-made for the NFL.
Oh, absolutely.
Tailor-made. And one of the reasons why, man, I'm rooting for. I'm hoping C.J., when he gets to that second contract, if Houston hasn't done a good enough job building around him, that he's able to get into the out there as a free agent, because that man's got multiple Super Bowls in him if he's got some talent around him.
I guarantee you the Texans will do everything they can, because they look at CJ as their franchise quarterback. He's that
right.
Guy.
They should.
Yeah, and for Corey, I get what you're saying, that I don't think JJ has the NFL measurables, in my opinion. I don't think he has what it takes to be an NFL quarterback. I don't.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, we need to make an adjustment, by the way. We said that 5 Michigan players were still in the league. It's actually only 4 because Zentner's on the Browns roster, and as we know, the Browns don't really play in the NFL.
Yeah.
And this comes from a Browns fan.
Right. That's funny. So
I mean, the Browns may cut Zach Zenner anyway because that's how badly he sucks. So
if you get cut by the Browns, you need to hang your head in shame because they're still carrying Deshaun around on the roster.
they're planning on getting rid of him, but that's what you get for signing him. That's what you get for signing him the $230 million.
Absolutely.
Guaranteed contract, dude. Man, that was crazy.
Stupidity is what that was.
I guarantee you they're thinking that he was still the same Deshaun from Houston. That's what you bought into, but you didn't really think about how he was on the decline, did you?
Nobody's going to be the same after sitting out for 2 years. You're just not.
Mm-mm.
You just can't.
No.
That's what happens when you have a dumb GM.
You got that right. $5 super chat from Bobby Mack there. TTUN only has 5 players on NFL rosters. We had 6 drafted right. That's 6 drafted right. How many do we still have on active NFL rosters?
It's a good question.
4.
Who are the two? Who are the 2 in that draft that aren't on rosters?
Still Chambers right now. He's in the UFL, and there's Josh Proctor.
Listen, TJ pulling out stats like you did some studying on that, girl. Good for you. Still Chambers.
These guys.
Still Chambers is a great dude, man.
He is.
He was awesome.
I think he could have been a good linebacker. He's just that it depends on what team he went to, in my opinion, for the right system.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully he gets an opportunity to catch on somewhere, at least on a practice squad, get another shot with this step and the USFL.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I knew when I asked TG to do this that she would go off on that. That was great, girl. That was so. I'm just sitting back and I'm just like, this is amazing. I love it. That is so awesome. I hope some Michigan people watch this and see that. Watch this.
Oh, they will.
By the way, have you noticed, Chris? This is our 3rd show we've done live
Michigan fans
since the news came out about
Pervo the Great.
Yeah. And none of them have come to our live shows in the chat.
Oh, I would be happy if they want to call in and discuss the state of their program right now. I'd actually be more than welcoming to that.
You know what's even worse is like with the Matt Weiss thing. I know they didn't bring this up because I don't think they're gonna put this as part of the charges because of how egregious the other stuff was. But it is true that this dude was legitimately hacking other schools, like legit practice film. Ohio State was on there. A lot of Ohio State was on there. Penn State, Michigan State, Georgia, Bama, and some other schools as well.
Ohio State wasn't really on there. Ryan Day's brother put that on there to make it
look right. 100 different universities.
Yeah.
Crazy.
100.
He's such a scumbag.
You can bet that's going to be in the NFL's, or I'm sorry, in the NCAA's final charges.
That's insane.
Oh, trust me, they really want to put that in there. They've been wanting to put that in there because they already knew from the fact the FBI had showed it to them, and they were
right.
Like,
yeah.
You know, there is talk from Nevada Buck that either it could be part of this little charge that they have with Michigan currently with the Connor Stanley stuff, or it could be a third NOA because they also got the gambling cookies on there as well that they can charge them for. So imagine this too, that in a couple years you get like 3 NOAs. Like legit 3 NOAs, man. 3 notice of allegations. Like think about how bad you have to be already. And it's gonna be like right after this whole thing with Connor Stalions is over.
Here's the question. I mean, and we joked about it a little bit the other night, and I joked about it a little bit today with Jay on our fan page. Has Michigan officially sunk to the level of where the U was? Have Michigan and Georgia now surpassed the U as far as the negativity and kind of becoming felon U?
Michigan definitely has. I think with Georgia, they're there. I think they're more like where Florida was. You know, under
let's be careful
in Urban's final years.
Let's remember Aaron Hernandez went to Florida.
I know, but still, it's like from what we know with troubles on the football team with off the field issues and everything, it's pretty
Yeah.
similar to Urban. So I would say, and is that how we pretty much look at Florida as like felony U or anything like that? Because that's why I don't think Georgia's there yet, but they finna get there very soon if they don't stop this.
Yeah, I mean the state of Michigan athletics in general is really ugly right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very ugly.
What's super funny is remember when, because I was alive for this. I remember this so fondly because I was still a kid then, and I was always trying to figure out what was the big deal about the Ohio State players getting tattoos. Remember how all the Michigan fans were then? And it's like, oh, y'all trying to make excuses for felony crimes now. And what y'all were doing with the cheating scandal, but yet y'all were bashing Ohio State, treating them like villains because of tattoos, dude. Seriously? What was the big deal about them getting tattoos? Even me as a kid was like, what was that about? Who cares?
Well, and this is probably one where this is another show that you and I could shoot, TG, because I have a certain stance on this. While I understand what you're saying, it was against the rules. They broke the rules. And as far as I'm concerned, they should have been penalized the way they were.
Yeah, I know. I agree. I don't think they should have broke the rules, but still, it's like today we laugh at it and scoff at it. Like, what was really? Who gives a dang?
I have
It's like,
no forgiveness.
I mean, I really didn't care, and I still don't.
Chris.
But I will say this: like, did tattoos make the players play better?
Absolutely not.
Exactly. So why are y'all treating it
Yeah,
like as if they were cheating? That's what I'm talking about. Is like that's what I'm talking about. Like Michigan fans are making it seem like as if Ohio State was cheating and as if they were also doing this in recruiting when it was like legit players that were on the roster already. Whereas like
Well,
what y'all did was like
they're-
y'all are recruiting illegally when you weren't even supposed to. More importantly, you did it when COVID was a thing, and they told you don't have players on COVID because we don't know how deadly this could be. At the time, it was uncertain. On top of the fact that the cheating scandal really takes it by a mile. It's not even close.
you know, their whole argument with the tattoo thing was, well, you're playing ineligible players. That's their argument. You played ineligible players because they got tattoos.
What's so funny about that is
So you cheated on the field. That's their argument.
That's not a legitimate argument.
Which is crap. It's crap.
Yeah, that. Like, here's the thing though. When you're talking about it, like ineligible players, the funny thing is with that whole thing is like the NCAA did not rule them ineligible players
Correct.
until after the fact. So it's like, no, you can't say they play with ineligible players when they allowed Ohio State to play those players. It's like, no, that's not ineligible players at the time. Versus, I mean, you could say that about Blake Corum when it comes to the Connor Stallions LLC then, by that logic.
Exactly. But you know what? The hypocrisy knows no bounds in Ann Arbor.
Of course it don't.
They have no limitation to just how hypocritical they'll be. So
yeah, here's be the funny thing though too. Like, dude, I was a kid and I always like, of course, I hated Michigan, but I had respect for them, and I wasn't like all like I didn't think their fan base was that dumb. It's like the older I got, the dumber I've seen their fan base, especially more now than ever. I'm like, this is the dumbest set of people I've ever known, and it's not all fans because I actually have one of my mom's friends is a Michigan fan. He's actually a pretty smart dude.
Yeah,
but all the other Michigan fans and even some other podcasters in Michigan, they've even agreed, like, you have some smart people there. It's just not a lie. But the majority of their fan base is just cult, follow on stupid. I'm like, it's like, y'all talk about Ohio State's education and how, like, and then it turns out that Ohio State's the smartest program in the Big Ten. So, like, how are y'all going to brag about your education when y'all are this stupid? How can you be this stupid?
It's what happens when stupidity meets arrogance. That's what's going on up in Ann Arbor right now. It's when stupidity meets arrogance. This is what you get.
You know, I actually had said this before that I know we're never going to probably stop caring about the rivalry, but I said if Ohio State, because with the Matt Weiss thing and then this whole debacle with the Connor Stallions, because apparently Connor Stallions, and whether people know it or not, he was actually using what Matt Weiss did with the practice film to his advantage. Sure. And if you listen to what somebody has said this, I forget who it was, but I think it was Torg from the OVE podcast who said that on the sidelines, Ryan Day and them were like, what the F? How do they know these plays? We never ran these before. So this is how they knew. This is how they pretty much knew some was fishy. And it's also in the meeting that all the Big Ten teams had comparing all the plays that they had, especially the plays they never used. Like Penn State, especially James Franklin, he had brought this up about how they were gonna fake like they were running the ball and just throw a deep shot, and Michigan was in like a two high safety look, looking like what is this? How did you know? what is this? So this thing would tell me that Michigan shouldn't be treated like a rival because they really have disrespected the rivalry in so many levels to me. I don't think that they're even worth being called a rival. You cannot spit in the face and disrespect the rivalry with the crap that your program has done. You don't hold your program accountable. You literally make excuses. You even making excuses for the pedophiles on your staff. Like, are you serious? Because if this was Ohio State, imagine the kind of scrutiny our program would get, if this ever happened at Ohio State. Like,
from our fan base.
And even especially, exactly, that'd be the thing too. Like, it wouldn't be just the media, it wouldn't be just everybody else, it'd be the fan base too. We'd be calling for everybody to get fired. How are y'all not doing this? So no, I don't think Michigan should be treated like a rival because, and think about it, if they stopped getting treated like a rival and they got brought into, they would make them irrelevant. Because I said it before, Ohio State is what has kept Michigan relevant the past 80 years. Without the rivalry, Michigan's so irrelevant. It's like, it's not even worth discussing them. No one would care. So they need Ohio State. Because if Ohio State decided to say, screw y'all, we're not going to treat you like a rival, and we're going to just go win a bunch of national titles, which would be Michigan's biggest fear, is Ohio State going on to become this legendary dynasty, and they're just thrown off into the corner. That's their greatest fear. I said it. I would let that happen just because you deserve it. I would rather treat Oregon like a rival because at least they would respect it and they wouldn't go the lengths that you go. I don't care what people think of Dan Lanning as much as I do not think their coaching is super elite because they still have some things they need to work out as far as development. Because the defense, fix it, dude. You can't be a defensive coach and your defense is that trash. I'm sorry. You just can't be. On top of the fact, you need to develop your wide receivers to do more than just run go routes and slants and screens. You got to do more than that. You got to really develop your running backs better. I mean, you had Carlos Locken in Ohio State, stole him, so that sucked. But you still got to develop them better. Like, you got to develop more than what you have to. But I would still treat Oregon like a rival because they would take it seriously. They would literally respect it, and they want to be where Ohio State is. Heck, they're willing to even hire people who are close to Ryan Day or have any kind of knowledge of the coaching staff to try to emulate what Ohio State does. So I would rather that than what this scumbags up north are doing. I don't want these type of people as our rival because we're giving them way too much credit, way too much attention, way too much everything. They deserve to be irrelevant. They don't deserve any of this. Any of the attention. They don't.
John Cooper's wondering where this talk was 40 years ago.
Yeah, let's answer this question in closing. Let's be this last.
This was
thing
a great one. I know one you'd actually talked about doing a show about, Eric.
I know I did. I think we should. In fact, Chris, we'll let TG answer it, and then you and I will actually do a show on this. How about that?
Sounds good.
All right, Tyler, I got a question. Who would you prefer to be our new rival if we could get a new rival from a lack of respect from Michigan, TG? You mentioned Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
Would you choose Oregon over Penn State? And if so, why?
Yeah, I would choose Oregon over Penn State. Like, until Penn State gets rid of James Franklin, like, if they got rid of James Franklin and you brought in a winning coach, then at that point, yeah, you will be a rival because they have the talent to compete with us. They do have NFL talent, but the problem is you got a coach that just, I'm gonna just say this, pees down his leg in big time games and can never, it just does the dumbest thing. So
TG,
until they get rid of him,
that's called James Franklining yourself, is what?
Yeah, pretty much. Until they get rid of him, I'm not gonna call them the rival, not yet. Like, I think they're worthy, but you gotta, until James Franklin could prove otherwise, no. Oregon, I would, because at least I know Dan Lanning is a winner.
TG, tell everybody where they can find you, girl.
Oh, you can find me actually on YouTube. I'm actually finna create me a social media page on Facebook and on Twitter, so that way you guys can follow me there.
Awesome.
And I'll let you guys know when I do create it, and on the Buckeye Boyz. But you can definitely find me on the Buckeye Boyz on Thursday nights. You can even find me on Sunday nights when we do call-in shows as well. So make sure you guys tune into the Buckeye Boyz and enjoy every episode, and I'll catch you over there.
Bobby Mack, $5 holler to end the show. The Cheatigan scandal is like Penn State University and SMU rolled into one. They may get a 3-year bowl ban, 3 years vacated wins, and 40-plus scholarships taken away. Boy,
that's absolutely happened.
If that happens, Bobby Mack, that is significant. That is significant.
That's
Yeah.
what the NCAA is kind of pushing for when it comes to the bowl bans. Is they're pushing like 3 to 5 years. They are not doing 2. They don't want to do 1. They want like 3 to 5 years because it's well deserved.
Like, share, subscribe. We appreciate each and every single one of you who showed up tonight. TG, thank you so much for coming on. It was great to have you. Oh, Chris, you have your call-in show tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Eastern.
Yes.
Do you have a topic yet? That's a no. Got it.
No. I found that the seat of my pants is the best way to go.
All right, so Chris will be going tomorrow on by the seat of his pants at 8 o'clock Eastern. Counting on all of you to call in and help that show take off tomorrow at 8 o'clock. We appreciate everybody for a great time tonight. Again, thank you so much, TG. Make sure you guys head on over to the Big Ten Huddle. Give JR some love tonight. Him and Zach got some great topics over there, so go check that out as soon as we are done here. Be kind to one another. I owe someone's OH. Sing Carmen, Ohio with all your heart. And before I forget, guys, I'm so sorry about the chat. My computer did this weird thing where I jumped off for some reason and jumped back on, and I'm only seeing like half the chat. I went over to YouTube and checked it out, and the chat was going a lot faster than what we're seeing, Chris. So I'm not sure what's up with that. We're going to have to look into that. But anyways, we'll try better tomorrow night. Again, thank you so much, everybody. Be kind to one another. I owe someone's OH. Sing Carmen High with all your heart. Till next time, you guys know what to do. OH!
I-O.
Go Bucks.